Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Sown and Rooted. I'm your host, Kimberly Collins, the educated natural. I am so excited to be back with you once again. And as you also know, I am here every single week with an exciting guest, and this week is no different. And on the weeks that I don't have a guest, it'll just be you and I. But don't fret, it'll always be awesome and mind changing. Listen, before we even get started, as you all know, October is one of those months that celebrates a lot of different awareness holidays. And this month, we've decided here on Sown and Rooted to shine the light on men and women who have excelled past domestic violence. Domestic violence affects millions of people across the globe. And here in the United States, it's very alarming, the number of men and women that have found themselves in such an area. Tonight's guest, if I had to describe her in just a simple sentence, that sentence would be, she is a woman that exudes strength. If you would look up the word strength, her picture should be right beside it. You don't have to take my word for it. She's a woman that has a powerful, life-changing story to tell. But before I bring her on camera, I would like to invite you to also sit in the seat where she is seated this today. I invite you to be a featured guest here on Sown and Rooted. All you have to do is go to www.sownonpurpose.com/contact us. There you will see a link where you can fill out a form to let me know, hey, Kim, I would love to be your next featured guest. In that form, you will see an area where you leave a message. Just tell me what it is you bring to the table and you think we should bring before our live audience. That's all you have to do. Just let us know what we should bring according to you before our live audience. If you would like to say, hey, Kim, listen, I don't want to be a guest, but I have an exciting world-changing business, book, product, or service I would love to bring before your audience. Here is your opportunity to do just that. All you have to do is go to that same link, www.sownonpurpose.com. Right there, you can see contact us. Once there, fill out the form. Let us know, I want to advertise during your show. I will contact you and you and I will go over the details and let everybody know about your business, product, and services. It's very simple. Yes, I will call you and we will talk out the details. No, I will not email you because I love talking to those that love to be a part of what I'm doing. So that is your opportunity to do so. Got it? Good. Okay, without further ado, listen, everybody. This is going to be a groundbreaking episode. Trust me. When she contacted me a week ago and told me her story, I was in tears. I mean, literal tears. And I'm someone that doesn't cry or is easily moved, but her story within the first 5 minutes had me broken down. Who is this woman I am talking about? Well, she is a businesswoman. She is an author. She's a mother. She is an all-around powerhouse. Who am I referring to? None other than my featured guest of the evening, Ms. Johnnetta Bennett. Welcome, Johnnetta, to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I am so glad to have you here. Listen, like I said earlier, your story touched me deeply, and I could not wait for today to come so that you can share your story.
Right, and I appreciate it because if I just touch one person, that's all I want to do. I just really want to help one, and it doesn't even have to be a woman. It can be a man too, because as you stated, men are going through this as well. So I don't know where you want me to start.
Well, before you get started in tonight's topic, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience because some people may not be familiar with who you are. So take the opportunity now to tell them who you are and definitely tell them about this exciting cosmetic line you have.
Yes, my name is Johnnetta Bennett, and I am the owner, the CEO of Imara Cosmetics. Imara stands for Strength and Prosperity. At the time that I came up with that name, I didn't have Strength and Prosperity at that time, so I was speaking it into existence. When I made the line, I didn't want to just come up with any type of names that just regular names for colors. I wanted the names to speak life into the women that use the actual products. And also, it came from a background of domestic violence. The ultimate goal of the brand, because it's not just Imara Cosmetics, it's Imara, the brand, is to eventually get back into domestic violence shelters, which I've already actually been in there. We want to be able to expand to clothing, to shoes, also the resume writing services. And as of a couple of days ago, really 2 days ago, me and one of my good friends in Florida, and even one of my friends in Atlanta, as of this morning, we're actually in talks of trying to figure out how we can make this even more global, how we can get our own domestic violence shelter / daycare centers for these women, especially after the experience I had the other day with the Florida shelters. So we figured we wanted to get together and open our own.
Now, you mentioned an experience you had the other day with the Florida shelters. Mm-hmm. For those of you that are not following her on social media, please share with them what happened.
So I got a phone call from one of my friends in Tampa Bay. I used to live in Tampa Bay. And she said, Johnnetta, I know that you're the only person that I can call in reference to this. There's a young lady who has a 1-year-old child, and she's been back and forth throughout the domestic violence shelter. She's running from someone that's actually after her, trying to kill her. The shelter that she was in Clearwater, for whatever reason, they told her time was up. They placed her on a Greyhound bus, sent her across state lines to Georgia to another domestic violence shelter, which was not safe at all for anybody. Wow. So I told her, I said, okay, well, I don't know how much I can do. I'm in Texas, but I'll try. She said, Johnnetta, I know you can do something. So I had the young lady call me, and she broke down crying on the phone, telling me everything that was going on. And it took a lot for me not to cry, because if you know me, you know I'm a cry. So I, the first shelter, first of all, I called the shelter where she was at. And I asked them, why would you kick out a mother that's running for her life with her 1-year-old child?
Absolutely.
Oh, because she was only supposed to be here for 45 days. And those 45 days are up. I said, okay, but she has nowhere to go, especially with COVID going on. A lot of the shelters aren't just letting people in.
Right.
Well, we sent her to Georgia. I said, well, were you aware that the shelter in Georgia was not safe? Well, that's not our responsibility to look into that. I said, okay. So after I got off the phone with them, I called her back and I told her I'm going to do everything that I can. The first shelter, and I said I was going to put them on blast, the Springs of Tampa Bay. I called them, and I called the emergency line. And I explained the situation, and the young lady said, oh, we do have somewhere for her. We have room. Just tell her to call us. I said, well, she's on the Greyhound bus. Can I do a 3-way call? Well, do the confidential. I said, okay, fine. So I had the young lady call, and they told the young lady that they had a room for her for when she gets there. Mm-hmm. So then they transfer her to someone else, and they told her, well, you have to go through a screening first. And then once you go through this screening, we will then determine if you qualify to come into our shelter. I said, what?
Whoa.
So she said that she did the screening, which they only asked her a few questions, which had nothing to do with domestic violence. And they said, oh, sorry, we don't have any room for you.
Oh,
so
no.
When she called me, at this point, she's livid, and I'm just dumbfounded. So I called them, and I got the emergency line again. And I said, you told us that you had somewhere for her to go. I said, what is the criteria? Does she have to be dead on your doorstep? Does she have to be the next victim on the news? She's running from somebody that's literally threatening to kill her. She said, well, why would she come back this way? I said, let me talk to your director or supervisor.
Wow.
I get to the supervisor, the director of the shelter. She was worse. her exact words were, "Why are you so emotionally invested in this young girl?" Because clearly she agreed to go to Georgia. I said, "You would agree too if you had nowhere else to go." I said, "I'm emotionally invested because I'm a survivor myself."
Right.
I said, "She's running for her life. What else does she have to meet?" I mean, I don't understand. She said, "Well, it is," her exact words were, "It is what it is. We don't have any room for her because she didn't pass the screening." I said, "So she got to be dead at y'all doorstep in order for her to pass the screening?"
My goodness.
She said, "Well, we can choose who we let come and who we let go. And we are choosing not to let her stay." And at that point, I'm not going to lie, I lost it. I lost it. All
That
the
was enough to
niceness
lose it.
went out the window. And, the slightly ghetto Johnnetta came out. And I politely read her. I went through about 4 different shelters with the same thing about screening and criteria and caseworkers. And I said, "Do you not understand? She will touch back down in Florida in less than an hour. She is homeless, nowhere to go. She's going to get off a Greyhound, and where's she going to go with her baby? Do y'all not care?" So the long story short, I ended up getting in contact with another shelter, and they have actual apartments. And the young lady was telling me about it. She just needed a referral to get into their shelter and apartment, where they weren't trying to give her a referral. So I talked to whoever. I went through. I was on the phone from 8 until like 1. Just trying to find the supervisor. I finally got their supervisor's cell phone number.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to her, and as soon as I got off the phone with her, she texted me and said, "I just spoke to her. She's gonna put me in a hotel. She's gonna get me over into where I need to be." And she was like, "Thank you so much." And going from that experience, when you have nobody to fight for you,
right?
You understand? What if she didn't have anybody?
Exactly.
She told me that she's been out on the street with her baby before. So and this is why I'm quick to tell people, don't judge anybody in this situation, because you never know if you may end up in that situation.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Johnnetta, I just want to thank you for your tenacity and for your strength to fight for another woman. Mm-hmm. Because you know what they say all out there in the media marketplaces, that Black women don't take care of one another. So to hear that you stood up for another woman in need is a huge thank you from me and any other woman out there that would do the same thing for another person. So I just want to personally thank you, because that took courage to stand up against some people that think they have all the power, all the say so. And you said, "No, not this time, not on my watch. This young lady will not be a victim of her circumstances, not on my watch." And so I thank you for standing up for her, because you didn't have to do it. You could have did just the same thing they did. You could have turned your back and said, "Well, not my problem, not my situation, not my issue. Let her figure it out." But you didn't do that. And I thank you. What gave you the courage to step in there even further than you could have done before? What made you step up there and do this?
Because I've been in that situation, a domestic situation. And my heart is for people, period. And when she said that so many people had given up on her, she broke down. Like I said, I told her, I said, "You know what? You go ahead and cry. You get it out. You're human. Get it out. But you dust yourself off. And everybody that's counting you out, let them keep counting you out, because you stuck with me for life now." I said, "I'm going to make sure that you get back on your feet, and that everybody that's counting you out is going to regret counting you out." I've been the underdog. I mean, yes. So I know what she was. I felt her pain as a woman and as a mother. I refused. Yes. To let her be out there like that. I refused for them to do that. Me and my friend, we both refused. We refused, Absolutely.
I want everyone to have that same tenacity. As we now get ready to shift into Johnetta's own personal story, I want you to hear. I want you to not judge, because like you always know that this is a judgment-free zone. This is a place where men and women can come, share their stories, and we are here to help them grow. We are not here to beat anybody down. So like she said earlier, nobody in a domestic violence or any other detrimental situation needs you to beat them down. They don't need your judgment. If you cannot help, get out of the way and send them to somebody that's willing to do so, like she did for that young lady. So we're now going to hear her story from the beginning until now. Brace yourself, because for some of you, what you are about to hear is going to shock you as much as it shocked me, that any one person, imagine all the millions of people, but this one person went through as much that she went through and still is able today to sit here with a beautiful face. Let me tell you, that makeup is popping. That cosmetic is popping, y'all. I was telling her to stand here today and have the courage to share her story with you openly, without reservation. Give her your undivided attention. Johnnetta, let's go back to the very beginning, when it all started for you in your childhood. Let everybody know about your childhood.
Okay, so in my childhood, my mother was a minister. She still is a minister. I was raised in the church, under the church, through the church. I could quote the Bible back and forth. She had a best friend whose house we used to go to like every other weekend. And the best friend had a 14-year-old son. He was the same age as my brother. For whatever reason, my brother would go outside and play, and me and this person would stay in the room together. I didn't think nothing of it. I was watching TV or what have you. He started with taking my hand, and mind you, I was like 6 or 7. He took my hand, he placed it on his penis, and he asked me, did I know what it was? Wow. No, I did not. He asked me to perform oral things on his penis. He threatened that if I told anybody, he would beat my brother up, have my brother beat up. He would beat me up.
Goodness.
And we kept going back to his house. You know, my mom wanted to see her best friend. Right. So it went from him touching me or having me touch him, perform oral on him, to, of course, it got deeper and deeper with, you know, his hand being inserted and things of that nature. And I mentioned my mother being a minister or in the church because these were things we did not discuss. These were things that were swept under the rug. These were things you did not talk about. So I held on to that. It happened for a couple of years until, for whatever reason, my mom and her best friend stopped talking and we stopped going over there. But
hold on, pause.
Yeah.
Right there. You mentioned some key things just in that section right there. You mentioned that you were raised in the church. Your mother's a minister, still is a minister. Mm-hmm. And when you told her, it was like, shh, don't say anything.
Yeah, you can't. No, this is something that we didn't talk about. I told her when I was in high school. So I didn't tell her I was in high school, but I couldn't talk to her about anything, because when you tried to come to her about anything, it was like you said, it was, we don't talk about that. If it had nothing to do with the Bible, if it had nothing to do with church, we literally had no conversation. Me and my mother had no relationship whatsoever. She would come home from work. She would be like, hello, open my door, hello. And then she would leave and go do what she was doing. So I held this in. And when you have a man or a male figure doing this to you, you don't know any better. You think that by them doing that to you, that's the way that a man shows you love. So it leaves a void in you. So I went throughout my years trying to fill that void. So that molestation led to promiscuity in my high school years and in my early 20s, which is when I had my first domestic violence encounter.
Hold on one second.
I lived in Atlanta. Mm-hmm.
I can't help but think about how when you go to a person, mm-hmm. whether it was your mother or not, when you go to an adult, about something that happened to you from another individual, such as what you just explained to us, you would expect a person that knows God,
right,
that says they walk with God, God knows their name, you would expect them to be the person to stand up for you.
right.
My question to you is this: how did her handling of the situation impact you when it came to God and religion and the church?
Not just the way that she handled the situation, the way that she handled me, period, at that time as a mother. Like I said, we had no relationship at all. If I told my mother I would say I love you, she would say no, you don't. Everything was about the Bible, was about the church, was about the revival. It made me dislike church. I'm not gonna lie to you, it did. It made me dislike church. It made me dislike the thought of God or the Bible, because it's all I knew. But I felt like the Bible and the church wouldn't protect me. So I wanted nothing to do with it after that situation. But it boiled down to, because I confronted her when I got older about it. I confronted her. And we have now, to this day, we have a much better relationship because she's open now. Because I found out that she was molested. She went through domestic violence with my father, which he told me that himself. But she had went through all of this. She didn't know, her mother didn't talk to her about stuff like that. So she didn't talk to me. So it was a cycle.
Right.
It all made sense to me why she was so cold and so, and now, like I said, our relationship is better. We still have work to do.
Right. Sure.
I still have some resentment, but it's a lot better because I understand now. I understand. Stuff like that needs to be talked about.
I agree.
Under the rug.
What advice would you give, now that you've gone through that part, what advice would you give to a mother whose daughter or son comes to them and reveals such information to them? What would you say to that parent and that child who may feel like they don't have anybody to go to? What would you say to them?
First of all, to the parent, I would say remove all judgment. Yes. Remove all judgment. Second of all, you're going to be angry. Wait until you're not angry to have this discussion with your child. Right. Don't sweep it under the rug. Don't be, and take away the fear, take away the embarrassment you may have. Because with her thing was she had a status to uphold in the church. Gotcha. So if this came out in the church, Miss Minister Bennett, how did you let this happen? Right. In your household, Minister Bennett. So don't, and for the kids, if you feel like you can't talk to your parents, you need to find somebody to talk to. Right. You don't want to carry that around forever. You don't. It leads to other things. Yes. Like it did with me. It left me a void. I was searching. Because I felt like me being done wrong like that was a way that a man showed his love for me. If he did something wrong to me, as crazy as it may sound, if he did something wrong to me, I felt like, okay, well, he just loves me that much. Wow. And I think a lot of victims, molestation victims feel that way. And that led to me getting in relationships that became violent.
So let's talk about after that situation, as you went into your next relationship. Let's move to there. Because like you said, it's a cycle.
So the first domestic violence incident I had to be about 22, 23. I had left home. I left because I was trying to get away from my mama. So I left Texas and I moved to Florida. In Florida, I was very promiscuous because I was 19 and had my own place, had a good job, but I was lonely. It was a lonely feeling, a void. So, I'm not ashamed of my story. I slept around just trying to fill the void. Then I moved to Atlanta And I met this guy, and something just felt off about him from the beginning, period. But I ignored it. He was in the Bloods. He was in the gang, and that fascinated me because he was a bad boy, you know. He was a big time dope dealer, and I was just like, oh yeah. He was buying me things, you know, and I was like, okay, well, all right. So Valentine's came around, and he invited me to his house, and my friend dropped me off. Him and my friend was a male guy. He was a male, and he did not want to leave me there for whatever reason. He was like, something just don't feel right. He's like, no, I'm gonna just stay here with you. You got to stay here. And so my boyfriend at the time, he was like, no, you got to go. They got into it. And before he walked out the door, I remember him looking and saying, are you sure you want to stay here? And I said, I'm fine. I'm cool. So, you know, I'm cool. So he bought me these kissable Hallmark bears at the time, you know, the magnetic ones back then.
I remember those.
And he bought me a big bottle of Absolute vodka because back then I was drinking very heavily, trying to drink away stuff. So, you know, I was drinking or whatever, and he wanted to have sex. For whatever reason, I did not. It was something that was annoying me about him at that time. So when I told him no to sex, he pulled out a gun that I didn't know he had at the house. He held it to the back of my head. He made me strip naked. He told me to get completely naked. I got naked. He made me lay on the bed. He put a pillow over the back of my head with the gun in the back of my head. And of course, I'm screaming, stop, stop, stop. And I'm crying. And he's telling me to shut up because the neighbors can hear you. Shut up, da, 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 da. So I heard something say, call his bluff. And I was like, and my mom said it was the Holy Spirit. I was like, call his bluff. You crazy? So he was like, call his bluff. One thing my brother taught me, my older brother, he always taught me that if somebody was going to do something to you, they wouldn't waste their time. They would do it. So as I'm sitting there contemplating, he goes to the phone. No, before he goes to the phone, he asked me for my purse. He gets in my purse. He takes my social security card and my license out. He goes to the phone. He makes a phone call to it, and I heard the guys on the phone to whoever the guys were. He was telling them, I'm about to shoot her. I'm about to kill her. We're gonna take her across state lines to wherever they were gonna take me. We're gonna bury her out there. Nobody should be able to find her.
Oh my goodness.
So at that point, that's when I called his bluff. I said, listen, I sat straight up and I'm shaking. I said, if you were gonna shoot me, you would have shot me by now. Mind you, on the inside, I'm like, Johnnetta, you about to die. Girl, you dead. You good as buried.
Oh, my goodness.
And he's looking at me with the gun in his hand. He was like, are you kidding me? I said, shoot me. You wasting our time. Shoot me already. And he was like, I will shoot you. I pulled out my cell phone. I said, let me call my cousin. Let me call her and have her come get me because you're wasting time. Mind you, at the time, and I'm so grateful for my cousin DeJoris to this day. At the time, we weren't speaking at all. We weren't speaking. She had just had a preemie baby. She was at home, just came home from the hospital. We were at each other's throats. When I tell you we hadn't spoke to each other for a couple of weeks, I was taking a chance by calling her. God said, call DeJoris. I said, I'm not calling DeJoris. So I called her, and she said, cuz, what do you want? I said, I need you to come get me. And she said, why? I said, I'm being held at gunpoint. I need you to come get me. At this point, he's like, if she comes, she got to come by herself. If she comes with somebody else, I'm going to shoot you from behind as you leave. I said, cuz, please come by yourself. And she thought it was a joke. She said, are you serious? I said, come get me. Wow. So she came. And when she came and got me, she shut her lights off. She parked kind of down the parking lot. And I ran. I ran to her. That was my first domestic violence incident. That's where it kind of kicked off. But strangely enough, I still felt like I missed him. As crazy as that sounded.
What?
Yes.
Wait a minute. What?
Yes. Because when you've dealt with molestation, when you've dealt with things of that nature, when you're trying to fill that void, they have you mentally. True. It's a mental thing.
True.
So I hadn't healed from that little girl.
Right.
So that little girl was like, okay, well, he did all this. Maybe he really, you know. but I never spoke to him again because my family wouldn't know. My cousins were like, no.
Right. Good. Good cousins. Good.
Right. So that was the first one. That was the first one. The second one was my daughter's father, and I had to take a deep breath on that because
Yes.
some of his family is on my Facebook, but they know the situation.
Take a breath, take a breath, take a breath, take a breath. Audience, if you're just now joining us, you are here on Sown and Rooted. I'm your host, Kimberly Collins, and with me today is my featured guest, Miss Johnnetta Bennett. She's sharing her story as she's traveled through cycles of domestic violence. She's now getting into part 2. Let me tell you, brace yourself, everyone. Get you some water, get you some tissues, because this is when it all came full circle. Johnnetta, I hand it over to you.
So, me and my daughter's father, we were together for 13 years. We went to church together with his father because they were transitioning from New York to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And his mom was back and forth. And it started out okay. It started out okay in the beginning. And then I'd say 2 years maybe into the relationship, I found out he was cheating. When I found out he was cheating, I confronted him about it. And when I confronted him about it, that's the first time that I was hit. I was slapped. And I was drugged across the living room floor. When I brought the situation to his father's attention, he just said, let's pray about it because he has anger issues. Let's pray about it. That's what he said. He said, let's pray about it. And that's how that started. That's how that went. From then he apologized. We didn't really deal with it. We didn't deal with it after his father said, let's pray about it, of course. And he said he had anger issues and that's something God has to work out. So we prayed about it. We went to church. And I'm still bruised and battered. Right. And again, it was swept under the rug. At this point, I like I said, I had no relationship with my mother, so I couldn't call her. Mm-hmm. I had a best friend. I had 2 best friends in Atlanta, Chantil and Felicia. Chantil stayed like right behind me when me and him moved in together. So after that situation happened, okay, everything was going good. Everything was okay. He wouldn't. So I thought he wasn't cheating anymore. We were all good. So I'd say maybe like a year after that, I found out I was pregnant with my first child. Found out he was cheating. Me and him got in a place together. Found out he was cheating again. Wow. At this point, I confronted him again. At this point, I get slapped again. I get pushed down to the floor. I get kicked. And then his sister was there with us that day. And she witnessed, mind you, this whole time I'm telling his mother, your son is hitting on me. Right. His sister told her your son is hitting on him. He hitting on her. He's hitting on her, Mom. He's hitting on her. And she was just like, kind of brushed it under the rug. So this time she witnessed it herself. Mind you, his sister witnessed a lot of stuff. And my best friend, they witnessed a lot. First of all, let me backtrack. It started with verbal abuse. Let me say that. He verbally abused me. He verbally tore my self-esteem down to the point to where you're nothing. Nobody's gonna want you. I'm the only one that's gonna want you. I made you the way you are today. You ain't, I'm not gonna say the words, but he verbally abused me to the point where I had no self-esteem. Like, I was just depressed 24/7. Wow. So at this point, me and his sister were best friends at the time, and we hung out together all the time. So she was there. It was nothing for her to be there. Me and him got into an argument about the girl that he was cheating on me with. And he ended up hitting me, pushing me, and then he kicked me in my stomach. I was pregnant.
Wait, pause. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're pregnant by this man.
Yeah.
And he's still assaulting you.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. So at this point, his sister is in disbelief. She calls the police. The police show up. The police put him in handcuffs. Mind you, at the time, his mom was working for, or she was one of Donald Trump's attorneys when Donald Trump was in New York. So his thing would always be, my mama would get me off. You could call whatever police you want to. My mama would get me off. So because I'm mentally messed up and depressed in the head, he tells me he's handcuffed on the police car. Call my mama, Johnnetta, call my mama. So I call his mom and she's talking calm and she's like, Johnnetta, put one of the officers on the phone. Me being stupid, I put the officer on the phone. I don't know what she said to the officer. All I know is that they took him out of handcuffs. They let him go. We went to court. They dropped the charges. And he bragged about, yes.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
You call his mother to get her son.
Yes.
To get her son, who is beating you while you're pregnant with her grandchild.
Yes.
She speaks to the officer, and the officer let him go.
Yes. And that's why he bragged about that, because of whatever powers to be that she knew. What I don't know to this day what she said to that officer, but they let him out of handcuffs. God as my witness, his sister as my witness, they let him out of handcuffs. And it scared his sister so bad that she refused, because he kept threatening her. He kept saying, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to. And she was so scared that she didn't come back into the house. She walked to the bus stop and got on the next bus out of there. Like I said, when he went to court, the judge dropped the charges. And after that happened, of course, I lost that baby. My mom would call me, ironically, because her job transferred her from Houston to Tampa, which is only like 5 hours from Atlanta. She would call me out the blue and be like, God told me something ain't right. What is going on with you? And, at that time we weren't talking. I'd be like, okay, well, you keep listening to God or whatever. You will listen to everything fine. And I would be lying.
Mm-hmm.
She would do pop-up trips from Tampa Bay to Atlanta.
Wait, your mom would drive from Tampa Bay to Atlanta to check on you?
Telling me, without calling me, she'd be like, Lord told me to come. And I'm like, the Lord didn't tell me. So she's like, well, what's going on? I'm saying nothing is going on. And I would try to hide my bruises and stuff, nothing. So the next incident, which was the worst, I got pregnant again, confronted him again about cheating. You see the cycle, because this is why I tell people, don't ever ask somebody that's in a domestic violence situation why they didn't leave. Don't ask them that, because when you're dealing with a narcissist and a manipulator, they have your mind. And once they have your mind, they have you. He had my mind. I was gone. I don't even recognize that person back then. Now that I look at it, I don't know who that was. So we get into an argument, and I'm confronting him because he's about to leave to go to the other chick house. So he's walking out the door, and I'm like, where are you going? We get into an argument. He literally hits me and pushed me through the wall, through my living room wall. Yep, the living room wall. It was a big hole in the wall the size of me, through the wall. So at this point, my best friend, Chantel, here's my apartment, here's her apartment. She heard all the commotion going on from her house. She comes over, I open the back patio door for her, and she sees the hole in the wall, and she is like in just complete disgust, disbelief.
Of course.
She's arguing with him, and then knock, knock, knock on the door. I'm like, who is at the door? My mama. Open the door. I'm like, what? My mama popped into town. I refused to let her in because I didn't want her to see the hole in the wall, because I was ashamed and embarrassed. Well, she pushed her little stuff in, and she saw the hole, and she just immediately went to my room and started grabbing my stuff. Let's go. You've got to go. No, because I didn't go with her. Because because me and her did not have no relationship, no communication.
Johnnetta, you were in danger and you didn't go with the person that God sent to you to rescue you.
That's what I want people to understand about domestic violence victims. You can't help them unless they want to help themselves.
That is true.
And at that particular time, he had my mind. I was gone. All I was thinking about was, I want to save our relationship. Just retarded. I just want to save our relationship. Me and my mama were not speaking. I got tired of her popping up on me. That aggravated me that she popped up again. And she broke down crying and begged me, please, please just come with me. Please come with me. I didn't do it. So I lost that baby.
So there's 2 babies by the
Correct.
same man that you have lost.
Correct.
As a result of the domestic violence.
Yes.
And you're still saying you're not leaving with your mom. You're going to stay with him.
Still with him.
Okay.
It got to a point to where I got tired of his cheating. And that's what, not the
beating, the cheating.
The cheating. I got tired of the cheating. And that's when I left. That's when I was like, okay, I have nowhere else to go. I'm tired of Atlanta. I'm finna go stay with my mama. That's when I was like, forget it. I'm finna go stay. So I went and stayed with my mama. That's when we started trying to mend our relationship. This is going to sound even crazier to you. He contacted me. He said he had changed. He swore up and down he changed. My mom and I let him come to Tampa Bay to stay with us. Mind you, she's a minister, so we couldn't live with her every weekend. We can only stay in her house every other weekend. On the weekends, we couldn't stay in her house. We had to stay in a hotel.
Okay.
He was putting a good foot forward, so I thought. He was working. My mama even let him have her car to get back and forth, everything. At this point, I didn't know I was pregnant. This was with my daughter. He told me I was pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant. He said, you're pregnant. Wow. I said, no, I'm not. He said, you're pregnant. He proceeded to put his entire body weight on me, mashed down as I was laying in the bed. And he said, but this baby not going to survive like the rest of the babies.
Oh, no.
And I was like, but I'm not pregnant. He said, you are. We kept going back and forth. So he tried to mash mind you, he's 6'3", 6'4", and he was 200 something pounds. And he was mashing his entire body weight on me because he was trying to get me to miscarry. So we had an incident at a gas station and we were in line. He literally grabbed me by my throat from behind and started choking me behind. I forgot what it was about. And it was some men that came and grabbed him off of me in the gas station line at the Hess gas station in Brandon. Yeah. I told my mom about it, and at that point, he, for whatever reason, he just got tired of Tampa. He got tired of my mom, that's what he said, and the rules, and he left. My goodness. So that's when I found out I was 5 weeks pregnant after he left. At that point, my mom put her foot down, and I'm glad she did because my daughter may not be here. She said, no more communication under no circumstances, none of that. And I ended up having my daughter. And even then, I was still like, I want my family. I want us to be together. And my mom was like, you don't understand. That's not you. He has your mind. No, y'all aren't a family. He don't love you. No. And it got to the point where his dad had even called and he had got a U-Haul and he was ready to drive to Tampa to come get me and my daughter. So that's what happened with that scenario. That's what happened with that scenario. Wow. But then my daughter witnessed it too. If you want to go there with her.
Absolutely, because I was going to bring that up. Did it stop after she was born?
No. I took my daughter to Atlanta to see his parents when she was 6 weeks old. He was, mind you, he got angry because I found out about some chick that he was with in Carolina. Oh, no. Because he had lied and told his family that he was in Florida with me while I was giving birth. And he wasn't. He was with some chick. So he came back home to Atlanta. He got so angry about being confronted about it by his family that he had my baby in his hand. He was like, I'll take her and throw her off a bridge and da-da-da-da. And so his father at
wait, he was gonna throw his own child out the window
at the off a bridge just when she was 6 weeks.
Oh,
the window happened when she was 4 or 5, no, maybe 6 years old was when the window incident happened. From that point on, his dad said under no circumstances, and I applaud his dad to this day. His dad is like, under no circumstances is she to be left alone with him, period.
Absolutely.
He's not supposed to come to my house if I'm not there. He told his mom, if he comes to my house, to call the police on him. Well, his dad left and went to work. He pulls up from around the corner and his mom lets him in. So, yeah. So
did he have his mom's mind too?
No, his mom, he's just a mama's boy. It's outstanding to me, the things that she allowed. I won't say so much allowed, but the things that she excused that he did.
Why would she do that? Was she in a cycle too? Like, this is not okay behavior for any mother, father, cousin, friend.
Right. That I don't know. That I don't know. But I know that him and his father they didn't really have a good relationship, period. But I do know that his father loves my daughter to no ends. And like I said, I appreciate him to this day. Even to this day, he says that if she ever chooses to come to Atlanta to see them, that she has to stay at their house, which is an issue. It's an issue with her father because he's like, no. And my daughter's like, I don't feel comfortable going with you.
Right.
I want to stay at my grandparents' house. So when she was like 5 or 6 years old, he just popped up into Tampa Bay. It was Christmas Eve. And I told him, what do you mean you're in Tampa? He was like, I'm on the Greyhound and I came for Christmas. I'm like, no. But I had him on speakerphone and I never said anything bad about her father in front of her. Mm-hmm. So she heard her daddy's voice and she was like, I want to see my daddy. I want to see my dad. So I was like, fine, you can stay. But the day after Christmas, you got to go. Well, he didn't want to leave. So we got into a huge argument like 2 or 3 o'clock that morning. At that point in my mind, I was done. I had came back to my senses. I was done. I was not that same abused, beat up Johnnetta. I went into the kitchen and I got a butcher knife. I held it to his throat. I called my mom. I said, you need to come get your granddaughter. She was like, for what? I said, you need to come get your granddaughter because one of us finna die in here tonight. And it's not going to be me. He's about to be the weekly catfish specialist. You need to come get your granddaughter. So she finally came, and when she came, he pushed her. And my mom is like 5'1". He pushed her, but my mom is like a little miniature soldier. She bucked right back up to him, and she was like, "You have to go." So I stayed on the 3rd floor at that time. Okay. He picked up Valencia, took her to the living room window, opened the window, leaned over the window with her and said, and looked at her, do you know what would happen if I dropped you out of this window? She looked up at him and she said, I'd die. And at that point, I'm screaming. And then I was able to get Valencia from him. And then that's when he had to go. And so my daughter, she used to be able to walk around our apartment with no problems. We had a 2-bedroom. She used to sleep in her room. She used to just go freely when it was just me and her. Mm-hmm. But when that happened, after he left, I had to hold her hand just to walk her from the living room to her bedroom. Anybody raising their voice, even to this day, I have to explain it to people because they don't understand. They're like, well, what's wrong with your daughter? Even to this day. Oh, she's different. You don't know what she done been through.
She's traumatized.
To this day, she don't like people raising their voice. She still deals with anxiety, and people don't understand it because she's 14, but she'll break down at any minute and cry. Right. If her anxiety kicks in, and it kind of frustrates me because people aren't really sensitive to that. You have to be sensitive to kids that's going through the domestic violence.
Absolutely, because
they have triggers.
Absolutely,
and she has triggers. But yeah, that's what happened with me. And he got married, and his wife called me one time while he was in the process of choking her. At this point, I'm like, and my exact words were, what you want me to do about it? I said, you're in Atlanta, I'm in Texas. I told you how he was. You said, oh, he's changed. He's changed. I tried to tell you, he has not changed. I mean, he cusses me out every opportunity he gets. If something
Even
don't
now,
go this way, even now, he will cuss me out. He's cussed my daughter out. He's cussed me out. But I've chosen to. I left it up to my daughter. I said, if you want a relationship with him, that's up to you, because I remember how it felt. Because remember, I said it was a cycle. My mom went through abuse with my dad, but she never said anything bad about my dad to us. My dad would call me, and my dad were like this. We had a relationship over the phone because he stayed in DC.
Okay.
He never kept anything from me. But I missed out on that side of the family until I got 18. And that's when I moved to Florida. And I always felt guilty because I was like, I don't want her to miss out on her dad. I don't want her to miss out on her side of the family, because at the end of the day, her grandfather loves her. Her aunties love her. Her grandmother does love her in her own little strange little way. But I don't want her to miss out on that. So I don't want to keep her from it. I don't want that cycle to continue, because it's a cycle.
Yes.
So she chooses, if he calls, she chooses whether or not to answer the phone. When she doesn't answer the phone, that's when he leaves crazy messages. That's when he threatens. That's when he cusses and gets ignorant. And she's gotten to the point now where she's like, whatever, whatever. But it still bothers her.
Of course.
So with the domestic violence, I want people to know that it affects the kids too.
Absolutely, it does.
It affects the kids. And I ask people to not judge the women, and it's men too that's getting abused.
Absolutely, I've seen it.
Don't judge people that's in that situation. And a lot of times the men get abused because they don't want to retaliate. You got to think about it. They don't want to retaliate because, think about it, if they retaliate against a woman with the way the judicial system is set up, they would go down versus the woman. So I mean, and I'm at this point in my life now to where I still have moments that may trigger me, but I've healed. I'm healing. I've healed. I've come like a long way from that. And I speak so much about it because I want to help women and even teenage girls that's in that situation. Because all I dated were dope dealers, gang bangers, all of that at a young age, because I felt like the stuff that they were doing was their way of showing that they love me, and it's not. So I try to save people.
Have you, throughout your journey of everything you've gone through, and you mentioned healing, what steps have you taken to heal? Because people would probably hear your story today and they would think, well, her and her daughter should probably seek some sort of counseling. What are your thoughts on your own process of healing? Do you think counseling is a yes or no or deal breaker?
No. Actually, my daughter has said that she wants counseling. She wants to go to counseling. For me, the way I started healing is I started not being ashamed about it. I started acknowledging what was causing me to be promiscuous or to do these type of things. You have to be real with yourself first.
There you go. Absolutely.
And you have to acknowledge, let yourself know that it's not your fault. None of that happened to you was your fault, because you will start to feel guilty. Oh my God, I was promiscuous. Oh my God. You'll start beating yourself up. But why were you promiscuous? You have to start with acknowledging yourself. You have to start with acknowledging the root cause of what got you there. You have to be open and honest with the people around you that was there during that time. Yes. You have to take away fear. That's the first step to healing, is to take away fear.
Absolutely. My guest last week talked about fear. So yes, you're absolutely right.
You got to take that away, because I was so scared and so ashamed and so embarrassed for the longest. It's fear, and fear will keep you silent, and you won't be able to heal.
What steps would you tell a woman that may find herself right now in a domestic violence situation? What would you tell her? Now that you shared your story with us, what advice would you give to her if he has his hands on her? Like you said, the lady called you, his wife or girlfriend called you and said that he was choking her. What advice would you give to another woman that's still in it, that can't find her way out or his way out? What advice would you give to them?
The first thing I would say is you have to tell yourself that you are worth getting out of it. You have to tell yourself that you don't deserve to be in that situation, because no matter what anybody tells you, if you're not ready to leave that situation, their words will be dead weight. You have to tell yourself that your kids don't deserve to see their mother or their father treated that way.
Absolutely.
If you don't have kids, you have to tell yourself to not be afraid of what could happen. Get out of there. Get out of there the best way you can. The most important thing is, if the situation is so volatile to where you can't just up and leave, you need to start making an action plan to exit. Absolutely. Because that's what my mom said she did. She had an action plan. By the time he came home from work, we were gone. She had the whole house packed up. We was gone. Come up with an action plan.
Yes.
That's what I would tell them.
That's amazing, because I've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of women and men over the years that found themselves similar situations as you described today. And the very first thing when I would ask them, like, why did you stay? Or why didn't you call someone? They would say, I was scared, meaning they were fearful. They would say, I was embarrassed. They would say, I don't have anybody to turn to. Just recently, right after I talked with you last week, I had a call from someone and they were to tell me their story. But because of who they were around, they said, I can't talk about it because the person that I'm around don't know.
Exactly.
And I was like, wait, but the person that you're around should know. Because this was a top level family member. They should know. And they were like, I can't do it. They don't know. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, absolutely. You just heard me say his sister is on, which she knows. I have cousins and aunties. We were in the same city in Atlanta. They had no idea what was going on. If my male cousins that stayed in Atlanta at that time knew what was going on, I guarantee you we will be talking at his gravesite right now, because there is no way that they would have let that happen. None whatsoever. But you keep it inside because of fear and because of the fear of what people are going to think about you. Because so many times I've said this, I've told my testimony, I've told my story to some people, and they judge you. They think you're weak-minded because you stayed that long.
Right.
You're not weak-minded at all. You're actually kind of strong because you stand there, but you're strong enough to leave. You're not weak. That's another thing. People got to stop telling these victims that they're weak for staying. They're not. It's certain situations, certain circumstances that they have to maneuver through to make sure they have a safe exit out of there.
Right.
Because if you saw I don't know if you saw what I posted about the girl, the 21-year-old girl was fleeing from her boyfriend.
Yes, I saw that.
Her ex-boyfriend. She was en route to a shelter. He followed her and gunned her down on the road. So, and then the other young lady shot 10 times in front of her kids trying to leave.
Goodness.
So certain circumstances require certain actions, which is why you need to have a game plan set up. Some women can't just go like that.
True. So true.
You got to think about finances.
Absolutely.
If you're dealing with a narcissist manipulator, 9 times out of 10, he has control of your finances. So you can't just up and leave. You can't. So people have to take all of that into mind. They really do.
So Trin, you have to also understand that not everybody's you. You may have come from a family where they didn't play that. Maybe you came from a family where mama loved you, daddy loved you, and there was no sign of domestic violence. But there are some people who don't have that same story. Like you said, there are some people caught up in a cycle, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's drugs, whatever it is, there's a cycle. And if you've never been in that type of cycle, it's easy for you on the outside to tell a person, oh, if it was me, I would have been out here to be dead. I would do this, I would do that.
Right.
But you have to sometimes put on another person's shoes, walk in them a little bit, and then let's see how you'd react. Exactly. So, I can't help but think about your daughter. I can't help but think about her future. Are you worried about everything that she has gone through from an infant till now with her father, how it's going to impact her future when it comes to dating, when it comes to any type of relationship?
No. Let me tell you why. And those that know my daughter know that she's wise beyond her age.
Praise God.
That's because she's always been around my mother. It's like when I had her, it was like my mother's second chance to get it right.
That's how it was with me, with my grandmother. So yeah,
right. So it's like this granny that she has is not the same that I had, and I'm fine with that. If you know my daughter, she's very wise beyond her age. And also what's important is I have an open relationship with her. Okay. I don't keep anything from her. I've had a lot of people come to me and they disagree with that. And she tells me all the time, Mommy, I'm glad that you have an open relationship with me, because I have friends at school that can't talk to their parents about stuff. I don't keep nothing from her. She understands. And her dad, my abuser, he's told her what he's done to me, but like she said, it's like he's bragging about it. Wow. It's almost like he's bragging about it. And he told her, I'm not the type of guy that you want to grow up and date. He said that out of his own mouth. So I keep everything 100 with her. There's nothing hidden. She knows. And I'm not worried about it, because when I date people, or if I decide to date somebody, if I decide for them to meet her, she'll be like, oh, well, I don't think,
A typical youth reaction, okay?
Right. And she's the type of person, and this is another thing of advice I would give to women. Watch how your kids respond to the person or react to the person that you're dating.
Absolutely.
Kids are innocent. Their souls are innocent. Their spirit is innocent. So if they feel off about somebody, you need to pay attention to that.
That's true.
If they don't like that person, it's not because they're being petty all of the time.
Right.
You need to do further research into that. There's a reason why they don't like that person. Like it takes a lot for my daughter to like you. Like, she's not a standoffish person. She may seem like it, but I taught her to be observant of her surroundings, of everything going on around her. I told her to be observant of people. Watch them first. See how they move first. See how their energy and their spirit feels to you first. And that's what she does. And the guy that I was in a relationship with, her stepdad, that's what she calls him, her stepdad. 3.5 years we were together, and she didn't like him at first, and she just didn't. But they ended up building a relationship. And another person I dealt with, she loves him dearly, like dearly. But you have to pay attention to your kids, the way that they react.
Absolutely.
That's vitally important.
Even with my own mom, she did the same thing with me. We would go out somewhere and she would get with her people and she would sit me down somewhere and she would say, that was on the time when kids were meant to be seen and not heard.
Right.
And she would say, just watch. And I would sit there the whole time she's there, and they are laughing and talking and cutting up. And when it was over, we was heading home. She said, what did you see?
Exactly.
And I would run her forward what I saw. And she was like, okay. And she was like, I would tell her, this person's not a good person. That person's a bad person. I don't like that person. That person's cool. And she was like, same thing I observed. Because my mom, when she would go out, back in those days, it was all about the party.
Yeah.
So sometimes they would become inebriated. And she was like, what did you see? She would rely on me to tell her what happened, who did what. It was like I was like her secret spy. And so, yeah, absolutely. Trust your children.
Mhm.
They see things that you may miss. They hear things, they
Exactly.
sense things that you may miss because you're in the moment. You've been an adult, you're having your big fun. And so, yes, I love that. Also, Johnnetta, my last guest mentioned something that I thought was pretty cool. She
Mhm.
was saying to women that find themselves in a domestic violence situation when they're trying to get out, she says, have a code word.
Yes. I didn't
So,
have
what do you
one.
thought? What are your thoughts about the code word?
That's great to have if your people that you can trust are aware of that code word. Now, if you have a code word and only one or two other people may know it, and you're not around those one or two other people, and you're saying this code word, and everybody's looking at you like, well, what's going on?
Right.
It's great to have a code word. Um, it's great to have some type of system in place. I mean, it all depends with the code word. It all depends on when you're using it, who knows about it. You because, and I say that because a lot of times in domestic situations or any type of situations like that, you're too afraid to tell anybody that you're even going through it.
True.
So if you have a code word, you can't be afraid to use it.
There you go. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Now, for as we wrap up here,
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back and I want to give you the chance to talk about the shelter that you're working with for women that may find themselves in this situation, because I know a lot of women and men run to their nearest shelter for help. And earlier you shared a young lady's situation where the shelter was failing her miserably. But give us some insight as to how it should go and what the steps people should take when they go to shelters for help.
The shelter, the local shelter here, I've reached out to several because it's happening here in Houston too, which is really sad. The one that I've been in main contact with, really trying to help, is the Bridges Over Troubled Waters in Pasadena, and they have a location in Baytown too.
Okay.
The way that it should go is if there's a woman in a emergency situation and she calls your emergency line or she shows up, she should not have to go through a screening. She should not have to go through a test, because they actually gave her a test.
Huh?
Yes, they gave her some type of test that she had to take, and she had to score high on it for them to determine if she could be a part of their shelter. Nobody has time for that when they're running for their life, when they're in a situation. I understand the screening process a little bit because of COVID right now. I understand that. I understand some shelters may be in fear of the person, the perpetrator that's after them. I understand that. But a lot of this protocol needs to be stripped, or reformed. Let me say that. Changed, reformed, because they have nowhere to go. They're dying. They're being killed, men and women. So they need to change it. They need to make it less strenuous for people to get into these shelters.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm fighting for. That's why me and my friend in Florida, my friend in Atlanta, I even have a friend here, we're trying to get together to figure out how we can open our own, shelter. And my friend in Florida, she has her daycare licenses and everything. She could open her own if she wants to. That's right there. Like she said, that could be childcare. They don't have to worry about that.
Right.
And so we're all trying to get together. And my friend, she's she's over. I told you about her, Scars of Survival magazine.
Right. Yes, please.
Right. She has the Scars of Survival magazine. It's for domestic violence victims. And it has great resources in it. And it has stories, it has testimonies, and it's very helpful. And I've reached out to several shelters, and they want the magazine, and some of them get back to you, some of them don't. That's fine, and that's sad, but it's fine. But we're trying. She's in Atlanta. We're all in the same mind frame of this needs to be changed, reformed. Let's get together. Let's try to figure out how we can get our own things open, but as a unit.
Absolutely.
So, that's what we're trying to do.
That's a great cause. That's a great way to give back to the community, because it's happening in every community. I don't care how big the houses are. I don't care how much money the people that live there make. It's happening in every community. You can't continue to close your eyes to it. It's happening.
Right.
And it is so sad to think and now to know that shelters are failing those they were designed to help. That's your job, to help these men and women that need services.
It's the worst. It's the worst. Like I was so disappointed. I just could not. Like I said, it was urgent. She was on the bus about to get off, and I even went as far as to try to find her hotel for that night, but she ended up calling one of her friends that was in the shelter with her before, and they put her into her own shelter / apartment. So she stayed with her that night until I got in contact with the supervisor. Got her cell phone. But I mean, it needs to change. I'm in some of these domestic violence groups on Facebook, and they're private groups, and my God, it's happening more and worse than you would realize. And at all ages. There are women in their 60s getting that are in these situations.
My goodness.
It's and yeah, I'm passionate about it because
absolutely,
you know, that's what I've been through. And I asked God what my true calling was, and he revealed it, and it's this, and I know he's going to make the way and the provision for us and for you as well with your platform, and for everybody to get the word out.
Absolutely. Because when I saw your video about the young lady, I started thinking, who do I know in Florida who can help, who can do this, who works with people? And I'm like, I got to help her, because this is something that's needed now. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, it's October and we bring awareness to domestic violence in October, but it doesn't just happen in October.
Thank you.
It's a year-round thing.
This is
just to remind you that it's happening with everything else that's happening in the world. Not for you to say, okay, well, it's the last day of October. Okay, now we're on to Thanksgiving. No, they need your help year-round.
I said this. And I said, okay, we have cancer awareness. We have all of these awarenesses, and they're great. But all of these things happen 365 days a year.
Oh, man.
It's not stopping because it's October 31st.
Thank you. Thank you. The beatings don't stop on the 1st of November.
Right. It's either really about this life or you not. I mean, I'm just brutally honest. It's like, it's either you really about this life, about really making change, or you're just doing it to showboat, or you're just doing it to get likes, or you're just doing it to get sales. I mean, can't we just have church for a second?
Hello.
Or you just doing it to get views. I'm not about that. I'm about that life. It's quite a few of us that's really about that life, standing in the trenches for it. 365 days a year, period.
And that's what's needed. You know, God did not make us who we are so we can back down from a challenge.
Right.
He had you and so many other people around the world, every one of us, to go through situations to make us stronger, to make us wiser, so that we can turn around and share our stories like we're doing here.
Right.
Not to keep it to yourself, not to live in shame and in fear, because there is a young lady, because it's not just happening to our older women. It's happening, like you shared earlier, to our young girls.
Yes.
It's starting in the youth, not when they're 12. No, it's starting when they're tiny, when they're like preschoolers. Junior high, preschool.
Yeah, my daughter had a friend that went through the situation, domestic situation, in junior high. It's like, yeah, it's happening. It's happening.
And I would encourage every parent, mother and father, every guardian, grandmother, whomever, that are over children, create that open door policy, so that they will know, if nobody else in this world will listen, you, the one that has taken on the responsibility of them, are determined to protect them. In the military, we take an oath. And that oath is to protect this country against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. In my household, we have that same rule, to protect our children against all enemies, against all dangers. That's a serious position that God has given you to reign over. Do not allow another youth, another woman, another man to have to suffer through domestic violence or any other type of violence or violation in silence because they don't feel they have anybody they can turn to. They should be able to turn to you. Create that open door, create that safe haven. Like we can go to God in prayer and we can hide in his secret place. You should be that powerhouse, that secret place for another individual around you. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what you're there for. And like you said, if you're going to be saying, oh, I'm going to stand up for those victims, then stand up for them. Exactly. Not just when it's sunny, not just when it's convenient. All the time.
Not just for a sale, not just for a Facebook like. Be about that life.
Be about that. If you can't help somebody, don't hinder them. Connect them with somebody that can.
I agree completely. And they can reach me like my friend did. You can inbox me.
Yes, tell them.
You can reach me on Facebook. Please inbox me if you're in a domestic situation, you know somebody that's in a situation, even a sexual abuse situation.
Yes.
Inbox me and I will do everything that I can in my power to advocate on your behalf and try to help you like I did the young lady in Florida.
Amen. I thank you for your time. I thank you for standing up for those that needed you. As we get ready to close, please tell everyone how they can contact you as we get ready to wrap this up.
You can contact me at either on my Facebook, which is Johnnetta Bennett, or Imara Cosmetics. I do have an email. It is www. What am I talking about? www. You can go to Imara Cosmetics, IMARACOSMETICZ at gmail.com. You can reach me there. Like I said, a lot of people reach me on my messenger on Facebook. So or Instagram, which is Imara Cosmetics or Johnnetta Bennett. So you can reach me there.
All right, everyone, you've heard her information. If you need help, if you need assistance, if you just need someone to just listen and be that ear of advice, please reach out to Johnnetta at the website she has listed. And of course, as always, you can always reach out to me, Kimberly Collins, the Educated Natural, by visiting my website at www.sownonpurpose.com. And like I've mentioned before, if you would like to sit where Johnnetta is sitting tonight as my featured guest, please feel free to do so. Just go to www.sownonpurpose.com. You can hit the podcast link or the contact us link, and we will reach back out to you and hear your story next here on the show. Until next week, as I always say to my guests, thank you, my sister, for being here and sharing. Until God allows us to come together once more, like I always say, be sown, be rooted, and be blessed. Have a great one, everyone.